Have you ever seen the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray? It's one of my absolute all-time favorites of all time. In this movie, Bill Murray plays a very disgruntled, cynical news weatherman named Phil Connor. And every year, Phil Connor is sent to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where he is to report on the Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania Groundhog Day Festival. And every year, Phil hates this assignment more than the year before. So the deal is, on February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day, the town eagerly anticipates the arrival of the groundhog. And should the groundhog see its shadow, that means 6 more weeks of winter are on the way. However, if the groundhog does not see his shadow, that means spring is just around the corner. So Phil's hanging out with the local yokels, eagerly anticipating the groundhog, when a sudden snowstorm hits, shutting down the roads and forcing the news team to stay overnight. Phil trudges back to his hotel room, decides to turn in early because there really isn't much else to do. And when he awakens the next day, he realizes that something is different. Or rather, is it exactly the same? Phil realizes that it is Groundhog Day all over again, and he is being forced to relive the previous day's events down to the very last detail, over and over and over again. It is as if he is stuck in a time warp. Well, not too long ago, I too was feeling a little bit like Phil Connor, and that I felt like my professional life was stuck in a time warp. In fact, I would often joke with my colleagues as I would trudge up to the library at 8:20 a.m. in the morning to start my day at 8:30 a.m. Well, here we are for another Groundhog Day. I'm an academic librarian. I've been a professional librarian now for 13 years. And don't get me wrong, I love being a librarian. I love librarianship. I truly feel that it is my calling. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It was as if my career was stuck in a rut. I had hit a wall, and I just didn't know how to change things. I was no longer excited to get up and go to my job. How was I going to find the passion and the purpose that had led me to librarianship in the first place? I desperately needed to find what juiced me. And that's when something very unexpected and almost serendipitous occurred. It was as if I, like Phil Connor, was given the opportunity to rewind the clock in my professional life and to write my path. I was approached by faculty members in the Academy for Community Inclusion and asked if I would like to host and run a book club for college students with intellectual disabilities. Well, of course I said yes. I mean, how could I possibly say no? Wasn't this exactly the opportunity I was looking for? This was my chance at renewed purpose. This was my chance to find my passion for librarianship again. I finally had a project. I was so excited. And I was terrified. I mean, what did I know about running a book club for college students with intellectual disabilities? I'd hardly even interacted with anyone with a disability. I felt like a deer in the headlights. What if my book club failed? What if nobody showed to book club? Actually, what if a lot of people showed to book club and they hated it? When I tell you I was terrified, I was terrified. So I'm just going to fast forward a bit, 3 years down the road. It's really hard for me to believe that it's been 3 years now that I've been running book club. And in fact, book club has become so popular and successful that we now have to run 2 sessions a week just to accommodate all the students who want to attend. So at the time that I wrote this script, all in all, we had met a total of 45 times, had 32 students attend collectively, read 17 titles, played more than 100 games, watched 5 movies, eaten 50 pizzas, and yes, that's not a typo, 50. And I can't even begin to tell you the countless number of cupcakes, cookies, sweets, candy we've consumed. We've told at least 200 jokes, and I'd average a guess that we've cracked at least 1,000 smiles. Now, I'm not going to pretend like every day in book club is a walk in the park. I've certainly had my share of missteps and mistakes. Like the time that I got the book confused, I brought to class, or book club rather, a Monster Calls, thinking it was the very funny The Monsters, Inc., only to find out that this was a very sad, depressing tale about a young boy who had recently lost his mother to cancer. And unfortunately, in my club that session, I had 2 students who had recently lost parents to cancer. I was horrified. Or how about the time that I introduced poetry to the mix, only have it go over like a lead balloon? Or the time that I thought holiday bingo would be so much fun. The club members became so agitated because the same person kept winning game after game after game after game, only to realize that she wasn't clearing her board, so of course she was going to win. But then, of course, with every failure, there were these really surprising successes. Like the time that I introduced the biography of J.K. Rowling, thinking it might possibly be a snooze fest, and it actually incited the most passionate and lively discussion of the entire semester. So as I sit around reading the stories, both real and fictional, that unite us, I've actually come to the realization that we really aren't so different after all. In fact, for the most part, we all do want the same things. We want to feel loved, we want to feel appreciated, we want to feel listened to and respected, we want to feel a sense of purpose and belonging, and we want to feel happy. I often tell my book club buddies, as I like to call them, that I have learned so many more lessons from them than they could ever possibly learn from me. And it's true, it really is. And I'd like to share with you some of those life lessons. So what I've learned from my book club buddies is, I have learned life is not always fair. It just isn't. But I'd like to think that if we have the right attitude and a smile on our face, that we are at least partially prepared for what life throws at us. In addition to that, I've learned that a little bit of compassion and kindness can go a very long way. I've learned that laughter really is the best medicine, but that sometimes you just have to cry. I've also learned that laughing and dancing and singing in the middle of the day really can make all the bad stuff go away. I've learned the joy of a cupcake, the power of a smile, the importance of a hug when needed. I've learned how important it is to believe in yourself even when nobody else does, but also allowing yourself the freedom to fall flat on your face, because that's when you learn and grow as a person. But I think the absolute most important lesson I've learned from my book club buddies is this. They have taught me how to slow down. They have taught me how to be mindful and present in the moment. They have taught me how necessary it is to really appreciate those small things in life that bring us joy that we often overlook because we're so busy running to the next appointment or working to meet that next deadline that we forget what we have and we focus on what we think we don't have. And for that lesson, I will be eternally grateful. And yes, there are always going to be deadlines to meet, bills to pay, projects to finish, papers to write, exams to take. But I'd like to think that if we focus on the important things in our lives, like our health and nurturing the relationships that we have with friends and family, and if we focus on our self-care, that we can possibly feel a bit more sane, and I dare say, happy. So this is my challenge to all of you. Please, don't be so quick to dismiss others because you think they're different from you. You'd really be surprised how very similar we all are at the core of things. But yet, surround yourself with diversity, diverse way of thinking and doing things, because this is how we learn and grow as human beings. You'd be surprised how many opportunities go unrealized in life because we're either too afraid to try for fear of failure, or we're scared to step out of our comfort zones. And life has so many teachable moments, and they often come in the most unlikeliest of teachers, just like my book club buddies. So what my final piece of advice is to you, seize those opportunities should they present themselves to you. Seize them. No matter how scary, how messy, how uncomfortable, how unfamiliar, even if they are terrifying, especially if they are terrifying. Because you really just never know what's going to recharge your batteries. Thank you.